Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a financial trap that is literally hiding in plain sight. It's this bizarre mechanism that can completely blindside even the most meticulous, super careful financial planners out there. I really want you to lean in closely for this one because we're going to uncover a hidden trigger in the system that essentially takes the most basic rules of earning money and flips them completely upside down. I mean, we're all taught from a very young age that making more money is undeniably a good thing, right? Well, today, we're going to look at the exact moment when that fundamental rule just absolutely breaks down.
Just imagine, for a second, the value of a single, seemingly insignificant dollar. Usually, finding an extra buck in your couch cushions or, earning one extra dollar in interest on a bank account, it brings a tiny smile to your face. It's just a dollar. It buys practically nothing on its own, and it certainly shouldn't have the power to ruin your entire financial year, right? It's completely harmless. Or so you would naturally think.
But what if I told you that earning that one extra dollar could trigger an immediate penalty of $9,000? Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. $9,000 gone. Simply because you made $1 too much. You're probably looking at that number and thinking, wait, what? How is that even mathematically possible? I get it. It sounds like a glitch in a video game or some misprint on a tax form. But I assure you, it is absolutely real, and it catches smart, well-intentioned people completely off guard every single year.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We really need to strip away the emotion here and look directly at what we're calling the brutal mathematics of this situation. Now, to be clear, we aren't talking about some shady scam or an illegal penalty. We're talking about pure, unforgiving numbers written right into the legal code. When you're planning your finances, you usually assume things move in a linear way, right? You pay a little more taxes, you earn a little more money. But what we're looking at today isn't a curve or a gentle slope. It's a sheer, terrifying mathematical drop-off that actively and severely punishes a slight increase in your income. So to understand exactly how this happens, we have to look at the Affordable Care Act, and specifically at what's known as the ACA's subsidy cliff. By definition, this is a mathematical threshold where earning just a little bit more triggers massive additional healthcare costs. Here's the deal. The system provides financial assistance, subsidies, to help pay for health insurance premiums, and it's based entirely on your estimated income. But there is a hard, definitive line in the sand. If your modified adjusted gross income crosses that specific threshold by even a fraction of a cent, the subsidy doesn't just, slowly decrease. It vanishes completely. The math of the system dictates that you are suddenly on the hook for the full, unsubsidized cost of your healthcare premiums. Let's put a human face on all these mechanics. We'll call this the retiree's dilemma. Picture someone who has done everything right. They saved, they planned, and they finally hit that dream of early retirement. They aren't out there living lavishly, they're just carefully managing their fixed income and relying on the ACA for their health insurance coverage before Medicare kicks in at age 65. This retiree is watching their budget down to the actual penny, making sure their withdrawals from retirement accounts keep them safely within that subsidized income bracket. It's a really delicate balancing act that requires incredible precision. But, life happens. Maybe our retiree decides to take a tiny part-time consulting gig just to stay active. Or perhaps they need to withdraw just a little bit more from their traditional IRA to cover a surprise expense, like a broken water heater. In our specific case study from the source material, this trap begins super innocently when they realize they've earned just $2,000 over that crucial ACA income line. $2,000 over the course of an entire 12-month year. That is a tiny blip, a minor adjustment. It feels like this completely manageable financial move that should have almost zero negative impact on their life. And this brilliantly illustrates just how absurd this threshold really is. On one hand, you have this innocent input, $2,000 in extra income. And on the other, a monstrous output, nearly $9,000 in suddenly triggered healthcare costs. The visual disparity here is absolutely stunning. Because they cross that line by just $2,000, they lose their entire healthcare subsidy for the year. The system essentially recalculates and says, oh, you made a little extra? Well, now you owe back the thousands of dollars we provided for your premiums. The math is utterly, shockingly disproportionate. Honestly, it's genuinely kind of darkly comedic when you stop and compare a seemingly harmless $2,000 gain against a catastrophic $9,000 penalty. I mean, just imagine going to your boss, getting a hard-earned $2,000 bonus, and then realizing that bonus literally just costs you $7,000 out of your own pocket. It's a system where a tiny windfall, or a slightly larger withdrawal from your own hard-earned savings, inadvertently blows up your entire annual budget. It defies all common sense.
You worked hard for that extra cash, only to step on a financial landmine that leaves you substantially poorer than if you had just stayed home and earned absolutely zero.
Let's move along and see how this builds, kind of zooming out from our single retiree to see what this means for the broader picture of your financial planning. We're stepping out of the theoretical right now and into the deeply practical world of wealth management. When you leave the traditional workforce, you aren't just managing investments anymore. You essentially become the chief financial officer of your own complex ecosystem. And as the CFO of your life, you have to understand exactly how every single wire and pipe connects behind the walls. Now, what's really interesting about this is a brilliant metaphor used in our source material. They call it the plumbing of early retirement. Think about the plumbing in your house right now. You never, ever think about it when it's working, right? The water flows, everything's fine, it's totally invisible to you. But the absolute second a pipe bursts under the floorboards, it destroys everything, and it becomes the only thing you can think about. The subsidy cliff is exactly like a hidden, highly pressurized pipe. If you don't know precisely where it is and you accidentally tap into it by withdrawing just a little too much income, the financial damage floods your entire system. So the crucial takeaway here is that mastering these mechanics is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity. It's just not enough to save a giant pile of money. You have to expertly orchestrate exactly how and when you access that money. You really have to know the difference between capital gains, tax-free Roth withdrawals, and taxable IRA distributions, because the tax code and the healthcare system are deeply and perilously intertwined. Understanding these hidden, brutal mechanics is literally what separates truly successful early retirees from those who end up accidentally sabotaging their own financial freedom just through a simple lack of awareness. Which brings us to a critical moment of reflection. We've just seen how easily a single dollar or a modest $2,000 bump can trigger thousands in unexpected budget-destroying costs. So I want to leave you with this to consider regarding your own life. Do you know where the hidden cliffs are in your own financial planning? Are there invisible thresholds in your tax bracket, your student loan repayments, or your retirement withdrawals that you might accidentally cross this year? Don't let a hidden pipe burst on your watch. Take the time to map out your own financial plumbing. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.